Why do we exist in this vast universe? The question of where we come from has always been a fascinating and mysterious topic, one of the greatest inquiries of humanity. But have you ever thought that the answer might not lie solely in finding the beginning of life, but in understanding how our actions shape our lives and our destiny? Why do some people face challenges while others seem to have endless blessings? And why do we live in a universe that is constantly changing? Welcome to Stillness Unfolded, where we explore the profound questions of life, the philosophies that help us understand the universe, and, most importantly, how we can transform our lives by gaining deeper insights about ourselves. In today's video, we'll dive into an important topic, the role of karma in shaping human origins. You'll explore how our past and present actions, not only individually but collectively, create the conditions for our future experiences. This is a topic filled with fascinating insights, and I'm sure you'll want to watch all the way through to grasp the full content. If you find this video useful, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback helps the channel grow and brings even more valuable content to you. This video is packed with a lot of information, so make sure you watch until the end to catch everything. Thank you for joining me today. Let's get started. Chapter 1. The Buddha's View on Origins. Buddhism's view on the origins of human life is rooted in its core teachings about impermanence, suffering, and liberation. Unlike many other religious or philosophical systems that prioritize speculative answers to the question of life's beginnings, Buddhism focuses on the immediate, practical task of addressing suffering and finding freedom from it. The Buddha did not engage in the quest to uncover the origins of the universe or human life in the way that other traditions might. Instead, he emphasized that such metaphysical inquiries, while interesting, do not lead to the resolution of suffering. In fact, they often distract from the essential purpose of spiritual practice, which is to transcend suffering and attain liberation. A vivid illustration of this teaching can be found in the Agivakagata Sutta, where the Buddha compares those who obsess over questions about the origin of the universe to a man struck by a poisoned arrow. The man, rather than seeking immediate treatment, insists on knowing all the details about the arrow before he will allow anyone to remove it. This metaphor serves to remind us that while questions about the origins of the universe or human existence are fascinating, they are not as urgent or essential as addressing the suffering in our own lives. The Buddha teaches us that healing suffering should take precedence over intellectual pursuits that may not contribute to our liberation. His message is clear. Instead of getting lost in speculation, we must focus on the present moment and our immediate experience, for it is here that we can begin to transform our suffering. This leads us to one of the central tenets of Buddhist cosmology. The universe, like time, has no fixed beginning or end. In Buddhist thought, time is not linear but cyclical, a continuous flow of birth, death, and rebirth. In the Anamittagga Sutta, the Buddha speaks of the infinite and boundless cycles of time, where there is no discernible starting point. Time and existence are not a straight line that begins at a point in the past and ends in the future, but rather a vast, never-ending cycle. This cyclical view of existence implies that human life, along with all other phenomena, is part of a process that has no definitive origin or final end. It is a process that is constantly in flux, a cycle of creation and dissolution that continues endlessly. Rather than focusing on the moment of creation, Buddhism directs us to the ongoing nature of existence. Our lives are shaped by countless cycles of birth and rebirth, each one influenced by our past actions, our karma. This cyclical view encourages a deep understanding that existence is fluid and ever-changing. It invites us to stop seeking fixed points of origin and instead acknowledge that life is a continuous process of transformation. By accepting the impermanence of all things, we can let go of our attachment to permanence and begin to cultivate a greater sense of peace. From a Buddhist perspective, the question, "Where do we come from?" takes on a different meaning. It is not simply a historical inquiry into the origins of life or the universe, but a deeper exploration of how our actions and choices shape our present reality. In Buddhism, karma plays a crucial role in shaping the course of our lives. The Buddha teaches that our actions, both positive and negative, create conditions for future experiences. Therefore, understanding human origins is less about tracing a linear cause and effect chain back to an initial moment in time and more about understanding how the actions and decisions we make today shape our lives in the present and the future. The Buddha's wisdom encourages us to look beyond the search for definitive answers about where we come from and instead focus on how we can live more mindfully in the present. By recognizing the impermanence of all things, we are better able to detach from our attachments to the material world and live with greater compassion and wisdom. Buddhism teaches that the key to alleviating suffering is not in discovering where we come from, but in understanding the nature of our actions and their consequences, both in this life and in future lives. The Buddha's teachings direct us to focus on the present moment and the choices we make now. By understanding the cyclical nature of existence and the law of karma, we are empowered to live more consciously, shaping our lives in ways that reduce suffering for ourselves and others. The Buddha's perspective on human origins, then, is not just a theoretical inquiry but a call to action, to live mindfully, to act with intention, and to understand that every moment is an opportunity to create the conditions for peace and liberation. Chapter 2. The Cyclical Nature of Existence. In Buddhism, one of the core principles is the cyclical nature of existence. This concept of time and life is fundamentally different from the linear view that many Western philosophies and religions hold. In the Western tradition, time is often perceived as a straight line, with a definite beginning, middle, and end, like the ticking of a clock that inevitably reaches its conclusion. However, in Buddhism, time is not seen in this linear fashion. Instead, it is understood as cyclical, a continuous cycle of creation, preservation, and dissolution that repeats indefinitely. This cyclical view is not just an abstract concept, but one that deeply influences how we understand the nature of human existence. Human life is not seen as having a single, definitive beginning or end, but rather as a process that flows within a larger cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. This idea directly challenges the notion that our lives have a singular origin, suggesting instead that existence is an ongoing series of interconnected events, shaped by our actions and the conditions of the past. Take a moment to think about this. When we view our lives through the lens of cyclical time, it helps us see our current struggles or challenges in a different light. Have you ever found yourself caught in the stress of everyday life, perhaps worrying about a problem or a task that seems overwhelming? What if you could take a step back and view that problem as just one small moment in an eternal flow of existence? Would it make it easier to let go of that stress? Buddhism teaches us to recognize that every phase of our life is temporary. Just as the seasons change, so too do our circumstances, emotions, and experiences. The Buddha used the concept of kalpas, immense stretches of time that are beyond human comprehension, to illustrate the vastness of the cycles of existence. One of his famous metaphors compares the time it would take to wear down a colossal mountain, made of solid rock, by brushing it once every 100 years with a fine cloth. Even if someone were to perform this task for kalpas, it would still take an unimaginable amount of time to make a dent. This image helps us understand the profound scale of time in Buddhist cosmology and serves as a reminder of how insignificant our individual struggles are when viewed against the backdrop of endless cycles. On a personal level, adopting the understanding of cyclical time can have a powerful impact on how we approach life's challenges. When we're caught up in the daily grind, it's easy to focus on the here and now. Our problems seem large and urgent. However, by stepping back and contemplating the broader perspective of cycles, we can begin to see that our current problems are only temporary. Nothing lasts forever, not even our most pressing worries. Now, think about your own life. How often do you find yourself stressing over something that, in hindsight, turns out to be much less significant than you first believed? The Buddha's teachings encourage us to embrace the impermanence of all things, including our personal struggles. When we accept that all things, whether joy or sorrow, are temporary, we free ourselves from the burden of clinging to them. This acceptance leads to a sense of peace and serenity that can carry us through difficult moments. Understanding the cyclical nature of existence is not just an intellectual exercise. It has real, practical implications for how we live our daily lives. It shifts our focus from fleeting worries to long-term spiritual growth. When we embrace this understanding, we begin to align ourselves with the natural rhythms of the universe. Instead of fighting against the flow, we learn to move with it, cultivating greater insight, compassion, and mindfulness. This approach invites us to live more consciously. Have you ever found yourself caught in a cycle of negative thinking or unproductive patterns? Maybe you've noticed yourself repeating the same mistakes, or perhaps you feel stuck in an unfulfilling routine. Buddhism teaches us that by understanding the cyclical nature of existence, we can break these cycles. Just as the universe goes through cycles of creation and dissolution, we too have the ability to transform our own cycles. By practicing mindfulness and self-awareness, we can recognize the patterns in our lives and make the necessary adjustments to create healthier, more fulfilling experiences. The next time you face a difficult moment, try to remember that it is but a small part of a much larger cycle. Acknowledge it, learn from it, and let it pass. In doing so, you'll find that you have the ability to transcend temporary obstacles and move toward greater peace and wisdom. Recognizing the impermanence of all things can be liberating, freeing us from the need to cling to or resist what is temporary. By shifting our perspective in this way, we begin to align ourselves with the natural flow of existence. When we let go of the need for certainty or control, we can truly experience life as it is, constantly changing, ever-evolving, and ultimately, a process of transformation. And in this process, we can find peace. Chapter 3. The Evolution of Human Form. In the Agana Sutta, the Buddha presents an intriguing account of the evolution of physical beings that highlights both the nature of existence and the consequences of attachment. Initially, all beings were not physical in the way we understand today. Instead, they were mind-made, radiant, and self-luminous. They existed in a state of pure spiritual harmony, without the need for food, as they were sustained by joy. The environment they inhabited was one of profound mental substance and spiritual radiance, vastly different from our current material world. These beings existed in unity with the universe, unbound by physical limitations or needs, illustrating a state of profound purity and lightness. However, as these beings experienced the arising of desire, their state of blissful existence began to change. The Buddha describes how they began to long for something tangible, a substance called earthly essence. At first, it was simply curiosity, a desire to explore and experience. But as they began to indulge in this new food, their transformation began. Initially radiant and free from the constraints of physical form, they started to lose their luminous nature and slowly became more solid, material, and bound by physical laws. Their bodies took on physical form, and they began to experience the limitations of physical existence, hunger, thirst, and the emergence of physical senses. As their forms became denser, their awareness of the world shifted, and they began to experience the arising of attachment to material things. This transformation from spiritual, radiant beings into material forms is symbolic of the human condition. In this allegorical story, the Buddha highlights how attachment to the physical world, specifically the craving for material satisfaction, can trap us in cycles of suffering. As we become more attached to the material world, we begin to lose touch with our innate spiritual nature, much like the beings in the story who lost their luminous form and became weighed down by physical desires. This loss of radiance symbolizes the loss of inner peace and purity as we become more enmeshed in the world of physical sensations and desires. The Buddha's teaching here is profound. It is our cravings and attachments that are the root causes of suffering. Just as the beings in the story were once free from hunger and need, but became trapped by their longing for material substance, we too find ourselves ensnared by our desires for comfort, possessions, and sensory experiences. These attachments bind us to the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, known as samsara, which Buddhism teaches is the ultimate source of suffering. The more we crave, the more we tie ourselves to the endless cycle of becoming, where our desires continue to shape our experiences and create new forms of suffering. Think about it for a moment. How often do we find ourselves seeking external things in an attempt to satisfy an internal void? Whether it's acquiring new possessions, chasing after fleeting pleasures, or striving for recognition, The more we focus on material comforts, the further we drift from our deeper, spiritual nature. The Buddha teaches us that while material objects and experiences are not inherently bad, it is our attachment to them that creates suffering. It is the craving itself, the belief that these things will provide lasting happiness, that leads us into cycles of dissatisfaction and craving, which ultimately perpetuate our suffering. In contrast to our attachment to the physical world, the Buddha encourages us to rediscover our inner light, our spiritual essence. He teaches that true freedom and peace come not from external possessions or accomplishments, but from detaching ourselves from material cravings and returning to our true spiritual nature. The body and its desires are transient. They change, decay, and eventually cease. But our consciousness, our awareness, remains. This process of transformation in the Agana Sutta serves as a profound reminder. Our true essence is not defined by the physical body or the external world. Instead, it lies in our consciousness, the part of us that transcends the material realm. The Buddha's teaching suggests that we are not our bodies, nor are we our desires. We are the awareness that experiences these phenomena. By shifting our focus from the physical world and its transient pleasures to the cultivation of inner peace and wisdom, we begin to reconnect with our true spiritual nature. The story also encourages us to look inward and examine our own attachments. How often do we identify with our bodies, our possessions, or our status? These attachments obscure our true nature and trap us in a cycle of craving and dissatisfaction. Buddhism invites us to reflect on our desires and practice letting go, detaching from the belief that happiness can be found in external things. Instead, we are encouraged to cultivate mindfulness, wisdom, and compassion, qualities that reconnect us with our deeper, luminous essence. Take a moment to think. What attachments in your own life are causing you suffering? Is there something you are clinging to, believing that it will bring you happiness or peace? The Buddha's message is clear. By letting go of these attachments, we can begin to reconnect with our true self, free from the limitations of the material world. Chapter 4: Human Society and its Ethical Evolution. As beings began to develop physical forms, the next logical progression in their evolution was the formation of communities. Initially, these communities thrived in harmony, with beings sharing resources and working together for mutual benefit. This state of unity and cooperation reflected a pure, almost ideal way of living, where there was no need for conflict. The environment supported the beings, and their needs were met without competition or greed. The Buddha's teachings, however, suggest that as these beings grew more complex, both physically and mentally, things began to change. With the development of physical bodies came the rise of desire, and along with desire came attachment. The Buddha observed that the more beings became attached to their physical form, the more they began to crave external possessions, food, land, and other resources. What began as a basic need soon turned into a sense of ownership and control. These attachments bred greed, jealousy, and delusion, which in turn led to disputes and conflict. The more beings became attached to their desires, the more fragmented their unity became, eventually resulting in the need for rules and governance. The Buddha did not view this shift as inherently good or bad, but rather as a natural progression of beings' evolving desires. Early societies were neither virtuous nor corrupt by nature. They were simply reflections of the being's internal states. These early developments in society were directly tied to the changes occurring within the individuals themselves, their cravings, fears, and attachments. As beings grew more attached to their physical forms and the material world, they began to experience the negative effects of these attachments. The more they clung to their desires, the more they began to create divisions between themselves, giving rise to social inequality, conflict, and competition. This dynamic between individual desires and societal structures is something that remains relevant today. Just as the Buddha observed in the early stages of human society, the social issues we face today, such as inequality, greed, and environmental destruction, are reflections of the internal moral and spiritual states of individuals. What we see happening in society is, in many ways, a reflection of the collective mindset of its people. The struggles we face in our social systems, including poverty, war, and injustice are not merely external issues, but are rooted in the desires, attachments, and delusions of individuals within the society. Now, think about the challenges we face today. How much of our societal conflict stems from people's attachment to power, wealth, or status? The more we cling to these desires, the more we create barriers between ourselves and others, perpetuating division and suffering. From a Buddhist perspective, these social issues are not something to be fixed merely through external means, such as laws or reforms. While these approaches are important, they do not address the root cause of the problems, the desires and attachments that exist within each individual. True social progress, according to the Buddha, comes not from outward change, but from inner transformation. The Buddhist teachings urge us to look within ourselves and cultivate virtues such as compassion, mindfulness, and wisdom. These inner qualities are essential for counterbalancing the negative tendencies we see in our societies. Compassion helps us understand the suffering of others and encourages us to act with kindness and empathy. Mindfulness allows us to recognize our attachments and desires, so that we can let go of them before they control our actions. Wisdom helps us see the impermanent nature of all things, including our desires, and teaches us that true happiness comes not from external possessions or status, but from inner peace and spiritual growth. When individuals begin to transform internally, the collective consciousness of society shifts as well. A society made up of individuals who are mindful, compassionate, and wise will naturally reflect these qualities in its structures and actions. This does not mean that social issues will vanish overnight, but it does mean that true and lasting change begins with individual responsibility. As each person works to transform their own heart and mind, they contribute to the larger transformation of society. This is the essence of the Buddha's teachings on society, that real change comes from the inside out. The societal structures we live within are deeply connected to our internal states. When we work to change ourselves, we change the world around us. The Buddha teaches us that by addressing the root causes of suffering within our own hearts, we can contribute to the creation of a more harmonious and compassionate society. In practical terms, this means looking at our own attachments and desires, whether they relate to material possessions, status, or even our identities, and working to release them. By doing so, we create the conditions for a more peaceful and just world. It also means recognizing that our actions affect not only ourselves, but also the collective. Just as one person's actions can ripple out and influence others, so too can one person's transformation inspire broader social change. The Buddha's teachings remind us that we are not separate from society. We are all interconnected, and by transforming ourselves, we contribute to the greater good. In this way, the development of human society is not just about external changes, but about the ethical evolution of each individual within that society. Through this transformation, we can create a world that reflects the compassion, mindfulness, and wisdom that the Buddha envisioned, a world where the suffering created by desire and attachment is gradually alleviated, and where peace and harmony flourish. Chapter 5: Scientific Parallels in Buddhist Cosmology. The Buddhist view of the universe as a cyclical process of creation, destruction, and rebirth shares some striking similarities with modern scientific theories. For example, the Big Bang Theory, a cornerstone of contemporary cosmology, suggests that the universe originated from a singularity, an infinitely dense point, and has been expanding ever since. Some scientists further speculate that the universe may one day collapse in a big crunch, only to be reborn in another Big Bang, thus perpetuating an eternal cycle of cosmic expansion and contraction. This cyclical understanding of the universe in modern science resonates deeply with the Buddhist view of cosmology. In Buddhism, the universe is understood as undergoing endless cycles of creation, existence, dissolution, and rebirth. Just as the universe in science is constantly evolving and transitioning through stages of birth and death, Buddhist cosmology reflects a similar notion of time, not as linear, but as a recurring cycle. While the Buddha did not use terms like Big Bang or Big Crunch, concepts that were developed much later, his teachings on the impermanence of all things and the eternal nature of time align remarkably well with these scientific ideas. Buddhist cosmology teaches that everything in the universe, whether it be stars, planets, or sentient beings, is subject to cycles of arising and ceasing. These cycles are not random, but are driven by karma, or the law of cause and effect, which shapes the course of existence. The Buddha described the universe as one of infinite time and cycles, where each era gives birth to new worlds and civilizations, only for them to eventually dissolve and be replaced by new forms. Just as in modern science, where the universe is seen as undergoing an eternal process of change, the Buddhist view suggests that everything is in a constant state of flux. Take a moment to reflect. Do you often find yourself struggling with the idea of permanence? How do you feel when you think about the inevitable end of things? The end of a day, a phase in your life, or even the life of the planet? Buddhist cosmology offers a liberating perspective. Everything, from galaxies to individual lives, is impermanent. This awareness can bring peace, as it reminds us that change is not something to fear, but something we can embrace as part of life's natural rhythm. It is a reminder that nothing stays the same forever, neither our joys nor our sorrows. By contemplating this cyclical nature of the universe, both scientifically and spiritually, we are invited to let go of the illusion of permanence. How often do we hold on tightly to the things we believe will bring us lasting happiness? Our possessions, our jobs, our status, or even relationships? Buddhism teaches that attachment to these transient aspects of life creates suffering. When we understand that everything, including our physical bodies and material possessions, is subject to the cycles of change, we can learn to release our grasp on them. This idea of impermanence is not meant to lead us to despair, but to freedom. The Buddha's teachings encourage us to focus on what truly matters, the cultivation of wisdom, compassion, and equanimity. When we accept that life is in constant flux, we are free to engage with it in a more mindful and peaceful way. We can appreciate the present moment without being consumed by the fear of losing it, because we know that life is inherently transient and that each moment is an opportunity for growth and understanding. From a practical standpoint, embracing the cyclical view of the universe can help us live more harmoniously with the world around us. It teaches us to find balance by accepting change rather than resisting it. The more we align ourselves with the natural rhythms of the universe, the more peaceful and fulfilling our lives can become. When we stop clinging to things and start to see them as temporary, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering and open ourselves up to the beauty of the present moment. So, how does this apply to you personally? How can embracing impermanence and change shift the way you approach life's challenges? Think about a difficult situation you're facing right now. Could viewing it as part of a larger cycle, rather than something permanent or unchangeable, help you navigate it with more ease and grace? Buddhism invites us to reflect on these questions, and in doing so, we can begin to cultivate a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe around us. In essence, by embracing the interconnectedness and impermanence of the universe, both as taught in Buddhism and recognized in modern science, we can begin to let go of attachment and focus on what truly brings lasting peace, our inner spiritual growth, and the cultivation of qualities like compassion, mindfulness, and wisdom. These are the true constants in a universe that is constantly changing. Chapter 6. The Role of Karma in Shaping Human Origins. Karma, in Buddhism, is the law of cause and effect, and it plays a central role in shaping not only our individual experiences, but also the very origins of our existence. It is through karma that the cycle of samsara, birth, death, and rebirth, is perpetuated, and it is through our actions, both past and present, that we create the conditions for our future experiences. Unlike many other views of existence that suggest life circumstances are random or fated, Buddhism teaches that our lives are shaped by our own actions and intentions. Karma is not merely a passive force that governs our existence, but an active process that reflects our personal responsibility and our capacity to change our destiny. At its core, karma refers to the intentional actions, whether physical, verbal, or mental, that we take in the world. These actions are not isolated events. They ripple out, creating effects that shape the course of our lives and influence the lives of others. The Buddha's teachings on karma make it clear that we are not passive recipients of fate or random occurrences. Rather, we are active participants in the creation of our lives. Every choice we make, whether in thought, word, or deed, sets the stage for the future. Our intentions and actions are the seeds that will bear fruit in future moments, shaping our circumstances and experiences. Consider this. Have you ever experienced a situation where your past decisions came back to affect you, either positively or negatively? Maybe an act of kindness you performed years ago returned to you in unexpected ways, or perhaps a decision rooted in selfishness brought its own consequences. This is the very essence of karma in action. The Buddhist teachings encourage us to reflect on how our current circumstances may be influenced by past actions, whether in this lifetime or previous ones. Our present reality is the result of what we have done, thought, and said in the past, and recognizing this truth empowers us to take responsibility for our actions today. Karma also helps us make sense of the apparent injustices or inequalities in life. In a world where suffering, hardship, and seemingly unfair events occur, karma offers an explanation for why things happen the way they do. However, it is important to understand that karma does not suggest that suffering is a punishment or that we are doomed to our current situation. Rather, it offers a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. It reminds us that our actions, whether good or bad, create conditions for future events to unfold, and it is through ethical living and mindful actions that we can shape a better future for ourselves and others. This view of karma encourages personal responsibility. It teaches that we are not at the mercy of fate, but that we have the power to shape our own destiny. If our current life is filled with challenges, it may be a result of past karma, but it is also an opportunity for growth. The Buddha teaches that while we cannot change the past, we can transform the future by acting with intention, mindfulness, and compassion. By cultivating positive actions, those that are rooted in wisdom, compassion, and mindfulness, we can break free from negative karmic patterns and contribute to the well-being of others. The Buddha's teachings challenge us to recognize that every action, thought, and word has an impact. In everyday life, it's easy to overlook the importance of our small, seemingly insignificant actions. But Buddhism teaches us that these seemingly small acts can have far-reaching consequences. For example, how often do we speak to others with kindness and patience, or on the other hand, with impatience or anger? Each of these actions creates karma, positive or negative, that influences not only our own future, but also the lives of those around us. As you reflect on your own life, think about the ways in which your actions have shaped your current circumstances. Are there areas of your life where you see the fruits of positive karma, acts of generosity, compassion, or mindfulness? Or do you notice areas where negative karma might be at play, perhaps from past actions that need healing or transformation? The beauty of the Buddha's teachings on karma is that they provide us with the tools to actively shape our futures, starting from within. Through understanding and applying the law of karma, we come to realize that we are not passive observers in the universe, but active creators of our experiences. The choices we make today, our intentions, actions, and words, are the building blocks of our future. By embracing this understanding, we can begin to live more consciously, acting with greater awareness and compassion, and ultimately contribute to a world where suffering is alleviated and true happiness is cultivated. So, we've explored one of the most profound concepts in Buddhism, karma and its impact on human origins. As you can see, every action, thought, and word we utter has a significant effect on our lives and the future we create. Understanding this not only helps us know ourselves better, but also opens the door to living a more responsible life within our society and the universe around us. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video until the end. If you found the content valuable and inspiring, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future videos. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below, as your feedback helps the channel grow and brings more quality content to the community. Remember, we all have the power to change and shape our future through our actions and awareness. I hope this video has motivated you to live a more meaningful life with mindful actions. I look forward to seeing you in the next video on Stillness Unfolded. Wishing you a wonderful and peaceful day ahead.